When it comes to your kids' education, if you're like a lot of parents, you spare no expense. But what you expect in return, a self-sufficient adult, doesn't always happen. Sometimes instead you're stuck with a stack of bills that they created while they sit around the living room waiting for a job to happen to be dropped in their lap. Social psychologist and author of the book, When Our Grown Kids Disappoint Us, and smaller printable, Dr. Jane Adams joins us today with some advice for parents who are still parenting their adult children. The subtitle of that, explain what that means.
Well, the subtitle is really the sense of the book. It's letting go of their problems, loving them anyway, and getting on with our own lives. This is a book about us. It's not necessarily about them, although it does talk about how they got and how we together as families got to this point where our young adults are scared of independence, are addicted, dependent, depressed, boomeranging back home for longer and longer periods of time with no estimated time of departure and no real plan for getting a life of their own. And we baby boomer parents are very confused because this is not the way what we expected. We did expect. We expected them to be eager for independence the way we were, and you know what? They don't care about independence.
Right, and that's why they went to school, and a lot of times they may have different social reasons or addiction problems, as you point out, why they moved back, but a lot of times it's just simply financial.
They say it's financial, and you know what? It's not, because if they were willing to live the way most people at 21, a generation ago, expected to live, with 3 or 4 roommates, bricks and boards for bookcases, and a 4th floor walk-up, taking the bus or driving an old junker until you could afford a decent set of wheels.
They don't want to do that.
They don't want to do that. They want the life that it took us 25 or 30 years to get for them. And
well,
they
how
want
do you put
it
into words that they shouldn't expect that? Or
I
do you
guess
just
what
say
you
that?
say, you know, it's time for you to get your own life. You know, we earned this one, you earned that one. I'm not saying that it's always a wrong idea to come home. I think when being at home is a temporary adjustment, is a sort of pit stop on the road to full adulthood, when we are enabling them to go further in their life than they would without our help, then it's a good idea. But a lot of them aren't going anywhere except in front of the television
Should we set some ground rules when they move back in, make them pay rent, and say if you borrow money?
An estimated time of departure, and if they're saying, you know, I'm only here until I can save enough for a first and last month's rent, graduate school, that's fine, and that's a good idea. But when you see them driving that money they're spending, driving it, spending it, wearing it, vacationing it, and not saving any of it, then they're conning you. And it's time to say, you know what? You have your own definition of your life, and it's yours, and the responsibility for making it that way is yours, and you get your own life so that we can get on with our own. Because, you know, we have a few years where we're still young enough to enjoy the fruits of our labors. And it's not that we don't love our kids, but we put in 20, 25, 30 years.
We want to have fun, too. You got to have a life,
fun,
too.
And we want to stop. We want to be the last resort for our kids in crisis instead of the first resort.
What about when kids need money? Should you write something up almost like a contract, almost like a loan?
Well, it depends. I mean, you know, every family's definition of a safety net is different. And we all say we want to have a safety net. We want to be there for a crisis, in terms of a crisis for our kid. One parent's crisis is a daughter who comes home after an abusive marriage with a baby and no job and no place to live. That's a real crisis. We're not going to turn around on the street. Another child's crisis is, gee, I just lost my job and I can't make my payments on my BMW. Is that a crisis? Not really, you know. And he may have to learn that life is going to be a series of not being able perhaps to always keep those kinds of commitments, and maybe he's going to have to trade down, or maybe he's going to have to let it go.
I think everybody knows somebody that is in this situation, or maybe a number of people, but can you give me a ballpark figure on a percentage of, say, like 20-somethings that are back in the house?
Of 18 to 25-year-olds, nearly 60% of them live at home. Nearly 60% of 18 to 25-year-olds, and over 35% of 25 to 34-year-olds. But again, you know, I want to stress that living at home is not always a bad thing. It's only what it says about a generation that is that feels entitled to a standard of living that we felt privileged. Yeah, we were.
Privilege and entitlement.
Exactly.
The difference between the baby boomers and Generation
That's right. It's a huge difference. We were lucky and we knew it. But we were also willing to take the opportunities that were given us and go with them. Our kids, as you pointed out in your introduction, are sitting around waiting for it to drop into their lap. They want a job that is meaningful and fulfilling as well as lucrative. We felt lucky to have a job that enabled us to get the apartment to get out from under our parents' roof.
You sound like my mom here for a second. What do you do? What do you do when you have one parent that is the enabler, is giving the money willingly, and is giving a lot of slack, and another one's not done? It's
not just about money. And when you have two parents who feel differently, what you have to remember is the resources that they're offering to this kid are joint marital resources, whether it's the spare room or the money or the energy, whatever you're giving to your child. And so if one parent is very in favor of giving whatever they can and the other one isn't, you have really an argument over what's a joint marital asset.
Sure.
And interestingly enough, it's the fathers, not the mothers, who feel better about having their kids at home. It's the fathers who were off working and, you know, they were not like today's fathers carrying their kids around in snugglies at the supermarket. They're the ones who say to their wives, well, you know, if she's living upstairs, at least we'll know who she's going out with. This is a 28-year-old girl. Or why should he pay rent when we got a perfectly good room in the house that's not being used? And, of course, he understands that his kids are finally old enough maybe to be good company. Mm-hmm. And he's home or not working as hard.
But how do you get him
out
when the time comes?
But the wife has been waiting for years to stop cooking and cleaning and all that. She's ready for her own life. She's ready to have the kids out. So this is a huge source of stress in marriages, of long-term marriage.
What are the magic words? So you don't push them, you want to push them out of the house, but you don't want to push them away from the love and the comfort. How do you move them on gracefully?
One person suggested, I think very wisely, is you say to your child, especially the one who's floundering, your adult child who's floundering, who doesn't quite have a direction yet, I really want to support your dreams. And I will do what I can to support them to the limits of my ability, financially, emotionally, every other way.
And we've reached that limit.
And as long as I see you really pursuing those dreams. And that doesn't mean sitting around and watching daytime television all day with all of your slacker friends hanging out here. That's not pursuing them. If you can say, this is my plan, and this is what I need, then your father and I or your mother and I can make a determination about how much further we're willing to go. But we need to see some action from you. We're not going to be leaving classified ads out for you. We're not going to be nagging you. You're beyond that. It's time for you to define the life you want and lead it. And we will help to the extent we're able. But that's it.
Okay, and we'll leave it at that. Dr. Adams, author of When Our Grown Kids Disappoint Us. It is packed with a lot of useful information for both parents and adult children, and it's in bookstores right now.